What we are told about food is at best misleading, and at worst, downright wrong and dangerous to our health. As we will see, this is true whether the advice comes from dietitians, doctors, government guidelines, science reporting, or anecdotally through friends and family. How did we get in this mess, where unqualified people dictate the best ways for us to eat? This situation is unique in the field of medicine and science. There are many reasons for this, but I would pinpoint three major obstacles to better understanding about food and nutrition: bad science, misunderstanding of the results, and the food industry. Diet is the most important medicine we all possess. We urgently need to learn how best to use it. Science is complicated. The study of food and health nutrition is one of the newest sciences and only appeared in most countries from the 1970s in response to growth in the processed food industry and the desire for governments to advise on avoiding nutritional deficiencies. In most countries, nutrition is still not seen as the domain of medicine, and the two areas of sciences rarely overlap, with few medics ever studying nutrition or vice versa. So the experience, methods, trials and errors made in testing pharmaceutical medicines and dealing with the food industry have not been fully shared with the nutrition scientists. Despite the fact that it wrestles with some of the most important questions of our time, academic nutrition is seen as one of the least glamorous or important areas of science. I work closely with a commercial nutrition company, Zoe, which has recruited excellent analysts who began their careers in the supposedly more glamorous fields of astrophysics, maths, and economics before transferring to work on large-scale food data. But most nutritional experts, with a few exceptions, remain isolated and feel unloved and undervalued by their universities and funding bodies, which are largely sponsored by the food industry. Instead of performing the clinical, large-scale studies we desperately need, they are forced to spend most of their time teaching or performing small-scale, short-term studies on foods. Let us be clear. Doing good research on food is difficult, and funding has been woefully inadequate for the massive long-term studies that are necessary to test one food or diet against another in humans. It costs nearly $1 billion to bring a new drug to market, yet we spend only a tiny fraction of that amount when we assess foods or diets. For this reason, most of what we have been told about the benefits or risks of foods come from either dubious test tube studies or small-scale studies of rodents, given artificial diseases that are rarely relevant to humans. Almost every day there is a new example in the media. A typical series of headlines in 2019 announced that eating walnuts daily protects against cancer and colitis. In fact, the scientific paper merely described that mice who had been given chemicals to mimic human disease showed a slight improvement in metabolic profiles after 2 weeks of walnut therapy. The study was small and appeared in a modest but genuine nutrition journal, but the sponsors of the study, the California Walnut Commission, must have been delighted with the free publicity. These studies are next to useless, particularly as many other similar mice experiments are performed relatively cheaply, but never report findings when they don't provide the right results for the funders. Scientific research has improved, and we have come to rely more on large-scale observational studies following tens or hundreds of thousands of people over many years. These have provided important insights, but tend to be based on simple but often unreliable questionnaires. The instruments used to collect diet data have been crude, with overweight people prone to routinely underreporting consumption and skinny people overreporting. In general, most people underreport eating foods perceived as unhealthy. New technology involving smartphone cameras and apps is rapidly reversing this. A highly critical summary of the nutrition field in these observational studies in 2018 noted many flaws, including the point that positive findings are routinely over-reported. In a giant meta-analysis combining all of these kinds of studies,